Okay, so the next step that we want to do is verify, first of all, that the axle's all the way as high as it can be in the dropout. Some of these will come with a lawyer lock, so it has a little angled piece of metal that will go into this hole, holds the axle as high as it can be. So if the axle nut comes loose just a little bit, it holds the wheel in place. But that also lets you know that the axle is as far as it can go up. Okay, we're going to show this one more time. From this angle right here, okay, this will be an important adjustment. Generally, we're aiming for that caliper mount arm to be about 2 millimeters away from the rotor. We don't want it to be like 5 or 6, and it should be kind of parallel all the way across. This one appears to be pretty parallel, but if it wasn't parallel, what you're going to specifically do is this. You're going to loosen this axle nut up a lot. You can in fact take it off because the other side's going to hold it in place, right? You're next going to go and loosen up the bolts here and here. And what you're going to do from there is that we're going to twist this fork leg. We're going to adjust the angle of the fork leg so that way that caliper mount arm becomes parallel to the rotor. That we have to achieve that first, no matter what. So now, what will sometimes happen on this fork is that you'll have this loosen, you'll try to twist the caliper, the whole fork leg, it'll kind of return. So what you'll do is you'll twist it a little bit and then tighten up the bolts up here on the crown to give it some friction. You don't have to crank them down, but give it some friction so it can't twist back. And then observe again and make sure that you're parallel. It's the key to getting this to adjust. If you're much more than, say, between 2 and 3 millimeters away from the rotor, you're going to have a hard time because there's only so much movement that the caliper can have on here. So we only have maybe 4 millimeters tops total movement with this whole system. So once we have achieved that this arm is parallel to the rotor, we can then break the bolts loose here and then start maneuvering the brake caliper itself to be parallel to the rotor at that point. Normally what we do is we will take our face and look straight down from this point of view so we can sight through the brake and look to see if we have what we call a light gap. We want to see the same amount of light on both brake pads to the rotor. If we can set that up, that's what our adjustment is. So my trick when I do this is I loosen this up enough and that I can float the caliper and then just barely tighten this down, maybe 1/8 of a turn, until I have just enough friction that I can move the caliper around. But if I move it, it holds the position. Otherwise, when you have it too loose, you're like trying to hold it and do different things. You want the tiniest amount of friction, and then you can hit your adjustment. When you do that, then you tighten it up in little 1/8 turns. Don't just go ahead and try to do like a whole turn. These washers that are on the bolts will sometimes hang, and actually when you twist the bolt, it will move the caliper. So you do it in real small adjustments like that and work your way towards your fixed position. That way you get a little less frustration doing it. But that's the key to doing this in this specific way. Once this arm is parallel to the rotor, you're basically 75% of the way of getting this to work right.